This is the story of something that happened to me when I was 19, and I swear it still gives me chills. It's not just some made-up tale, I lived through it. This is the story of the true, scary McDonald's horror story I'm going to tell you. Back then, I was in college, broke like most students, and working the night shift at a 24-hour McDonald's just off the highway. It wasn't a fancy one, just one of those older stores with flickering signs and that slightly greasy smell that never fully goes away, no matter how much you clean. I used to think the worst part of the job was dealing with rude customers at 3 a.m., but that changed real fast one night. It was a Friday, and I was scheduled for the overnight shift, from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. There were only 3 of us. Me, an older guy named Raj who worked the grill, and Monica, the shift manager. She was cool, always serious but fair. That night started like any other, slow, quiet, and kind of boring. Around midnight, we got the usual wave of drunk kids from a nearby bar. They came in loud, messed around a little, then left. After that, it was dead silent. At around 2:30 a.m., the front door opened slowly. I was wiping the front counter and looked up to see a man walk in. Something about him was off. He was tall, maybe 6'4", really skinny, wearing a dark coat even though it was hot inside. His face looked pale, like he hadn't seen sunlight in days. He didn't say a word, just walked straight to the corner table and sat down. I said, "Welcome to McDonald's. Let me know when you're ready." He didn't even glance at me. I turned to Monica. "You see that guy?" I whispered. She nodded slowly. "Yeah, keep an eye on him." So I did. And the weird thing? He didn't order. He just sat there completely still, staring at the wall. Not at his phone. Not around the place. Just the wall. 20 minutes passed. Then 30. Still no movement. Raj came out from the back and said, "Hey, is that guy okay?" "I don't know," I said. "But I think he's been staring at the same spot for almost an hour." Monica finally decided to walk over and talk to him. I watched closely. She stood next to his table and asked politely, "Sir, can I help you with anything?" He didn't react, just kept staring. She asked again, louder this time. "Sir?" Then he turned. Slowly. His neck moved like it creaked, and he looked straight at her. I'll never forget that face. His eyes were wide, too wide, and his pupils were so big you couldn't see the whites. His mouth opened slightly, and this horrible grin spread across his face way too slowly, like it took effort. Then he whispered something. Monica froze. She looked back at us, pale as paper, and walked away quickly. "What did he say?" I asked. She shook her head, breathing fast. "He said, 'They're in the kitchen.'" "What? Who?" I asked, feeling the hair on my arms rise. She didn't answer. She just told Raj to lock the front door. "I think this guy is on something," she said. "Or, I don't know. Something's wrong." We locked the doors and decided to call the police just to be safe. While Monica was on the phone, I glanced back at the man, but he was gone. The seat was empty. I rushed to the front and looked around. Nowhere. He couldn't have gotten out. The doors were locked. We didn't hear a thing. I checked the bathrooms. Empty. We all looked at each other, trying to figure out how he disappeared. Then we heard it, a loud bang. From the kitchen, Raj almost jumped out of his shoes. What was that? Monica grabbed a metal mop handle and walked carefully toward the back. I followed, even though every part of me screamed not to. The kitchen was dark, the lights suddenly flickering. That never happened before. Then we saw the freezer door swinging open. Raj said, No way I'm going in there. But Monica stepped closer, and I, being the idiot I was, followed. We peeked in. No one. But on the frosty wall inside the freezer, there was writing. I swear to you, it was written in frost, or blood. I still don't know, but it said, "They never left." We ran out. Monica was already calling the police again, yelling now, and just when we got back to the front, the fryer, completely empty, turned on by itself. It started crackling like someone had dropped food in, but there was nothing there. We all stood frozen. Then the lights cut out. Total darkness. For 3 seconds. And when they came back on, the man was back, sitting in the same corner, smiling. That awful slow grin again. This time, Raj screamed. I looked away for half a second, and when I turned back, the man was gone again. Just gone. No sound, no footsteps, nothing. The police arrived 5 minutes later. We told them everything. They looked around but didn't find anyone. They checked the cameras, and this is the part that still makes me feel sick. He never showed up on the footage. You could see Monica and me looking at something, talking, walking toward the table. But the seat was empty, always empty. Even when the door supposedly opened, nothing came through. We watched the footage of the fryer turning on, the lights flickering. The writing in the freezer, none of it showed up. It was like we imagined the whole thing, but we didn't. We all saw it. After that night, Raj quit the next day. Monica got transferred. I stayed for a few more weeks, but I couldn't do nights anymore. I started feeling watched every time I was alone there, especially near the freezer. The wall stayed clean for a while. Then one night I saw the same words reappear faintly, like a whisper written in ice. They never left. I don't work there anymore. That McDonald's eventually closed down for renovations, but it never reopened. I drive past it sometimes. It's still boarded up, still dark, and sometimes, when I stop at the red light outside, I swear I see someone sitting in the corner seat, behind the dusty glass, just sitting, staring at the wall, smiling. So yeah, that's my story. Believe it or not, that's up to you. But if you ever find yourself in a quiet McDonald's late at night, and someone walks in and doesn't order anything, leave. Just leave. Some things aren't hungry for food. They're hungry for fear. This is the story of a night I'll never forget. A night that changed everything about how I see the world around me. I am going to tell you about the true, scary McDonald's horror story that still haunts my dreams. It all started on a rainy, autumn evening when I was working the closing shift at a McDonald's on the edge of town. I'd been working there for months, mostly expecting dull hours and the occasional odd customer, but nothing prepared me for that fateful night. I arrived just before closing time. The drive-thru was nearly empty, and inside the restaurant, a few lingering customers nibbled on their burgers while lost in their own conversations. I was busy wiping down tables and restocking condiments when I noticed something strange. The clock on the wall seemed to tick slower than usual, its sound echoing strangely in the silent dining area. I brushed it off as fatigue from long hours and a heavy downpour outside, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. As closing time neared, my manager, Dana, told me to make sure all the lights were off and doors locked once the final customer left. It was nearly midnight when the last patron, a disheartened old man with a forlorn look, ambled out into the rain. I locked the door behind him, thinking that with the storm outside, it would be peaceful and quiet. That's when I first heard the sound. A slow, rhythmic tapping coming from the kitchen. At first, I assumed it was just the sound of dripping water from the leaky roof, but as the seconds passed, the tapping became more deliberate, almost like a knocking. Curiosity got the better of me, and I stepped into the kitchen. The lights here were dim, and the familiar hum of refrigerators and fryers filled the room. But today, there was an additional sound, a soft, insistent tapping coming from behind the large walk-in freezer. My heart pounded, and I slowly approached the freezer door. With trembling hands, I opened it, half expecting to see a stray cat or some other creature that had wandered in seeking shelter. Instead, I found nothing but rows of frozen patties and leftover fries. Yet, on the inside of the metal door, I noticed something impossible. A series of handprints in dark, almost black smudges that were slowly fading. I rubbed my eyes, certain my mind was playing tricks on me after a long day. I closed the freezer and backed away, trying to calm myself. I told myself it was just my imagination. But then, the tapping resumed, this time from the storeroom door that led to the staff break room. I hesitated before opening it, and when I did, the door creaked open on its own, revealing a dim corridor that I'd never noticed before. I felt a chill as I stepped inside. The corridor wasn't part of the usual layout. It was narrow with peeling wallpaper and an ancient air that contrasted sharply with the modernity of the restaurant. There at the far end, I saw a faint flickering light. Drawn by both dread and curiosity, I walked toward the light. As I neared, I could hear a soft whispering, almost like voices speaking in unison, a low murmur that sent shivers down my spine. The light revealed a small room that looked like an old storage closet. Inside, I found dusty boxes and broken chairs. But one thing stood out: a large, cracked mirror leaning against the far wall. As I stood before it, the reflection didn't match the room behind me. Instead, I saw a figure standing in the middle of the restaurant, a gaunt man wearing a stained McDonald's uniform, his eyes wide and his expression twisted in terror. Before I could blink, the reflection shifted, and the man seemed to be pointing toward the mirror, his trembling finger emphasizing a message scrawled in what looked like dried blood on the glass. "He is hungry." I stumbled back, my breath catching in my throat, and dashed out of the storage room. I ran back into the kitchen and tried to convince myself that I'd imagined it, that stress and exhaustion were playing tricks on my mind. I returned to the counter and began closing up as usual, but the image of that ghostly figure and the haunting message wouldn't leave me. I kept hearing that whispering voice as if it were coming from the walls themselves, repeating, "He is hungry, he is hungry." Moments later, I heard a loud crash from the back of the restaurant. It sounded like a metal tray had been thrown across the room. I grabbed a flashlight and headed toward the sound, my footsteps echoing in the empty space. When I reached the break room, I found the table overturned and a series of frozen soda cups shattered on the floor. In the center of the chaos, a single red straw lay like a dropped lifeline. For a moment, I felt a deep, inexplicable sadness. It was as if I was witnessing the remnants of something lost and forgotten. Then the power went out. In the total darkness, I fumbled for my phone and turned on its light, only to see the hallways bathed in an eerie, pulsating glow. The restaurant's digital clocks began to blink erratically, their numbers shifting in random order. The familiar hum of the fryers and grills turned into a guttural, almost monstrous sound, as if the machine itself were breathing. I heard footsteps, pacing behind me. I spun around, but there was no one there, only the echo of my own rapid breathing. I bolted for the exit, but as I reached the front door, I found it locked, the handle cold to the touch, as if it were made of ice. Panic surged through me. I pounded on the glass, shouting for help, but the sound was swallowed by the storm raging outside. The whispering voices grew louder, circling around me in a dissonant chorus that suggested countless disembodied souls. I could feel their presence, pressing in on me from every side. In a desperate bid to escape, I tried the back door, only to discover that the door wouldn't budge. It was as if some unseen force was holding it shut. I backed away slowly and headed back inside, searching for any other exit or a place to hide. I found myself back in the kitchen, where the smell of frying oil had turned rancid, and all the equipment seemed to be watching me with silent malice. In the reflection of a shiny countertop, I saw the gaunt man from the mirror again. This time he was much closer, his face contorted with sorrow and hunger. His eyes met mine, and for a brief second, I felt the weight of centuries of longing and regret behind them. He pointed again, and in a trembling voice I could almost hear him say, "You must feed me." I couldn't understand what he meant. The lights flickered wildly as if reacting to his presence. The instruments on the counter vibrated, and I realized with growing horror that the restaurant seemed to have come alive in a macabre way. The hamburger grills ignited on their own, sending bursts of sparks into the air, and the deep fryers bubbled as if something, or someone, was boiling inside them. I retreated to a corner behind the counter, heart pounding and hands shaking. Every instinct in my body screamed to run, but I was trapped inside a nightmare where reality and the supernatural merged. The whispering voices had grown into a deafening clamor, punctuated by the sound of that same rhythmic tapping from earlier. The message on the mirror, "He is hungry," echoed in my mind like a maddening refrain. Suddenly, the power snapped back on, and for a moment, everything went eerily quiet. I cautiously peeked out from behind the counter. The restaurant looked normal, tidy, as if nothing had happened. The doors were unlocked again and the spilled soda cups had been swept away, but deep down, I knew that normality was only a facade. I stepped outside into the cold rain, the storm calming as if in mockery, and hurried to my car. Even as I drove away that night, every time a McDonald's sign flashed in my rearview mirror, I would catch a glimpse of that gaunt face staring back at me, its eyes pleading, its mouth forming silent words that I could almost hear. "Come back. Feed me." I never returned to that McDonald's, and I don't think I ever will. I tried to warn others about the strange happenings there, but most people just chalk it up to urban legends and tired ghost stories. I later learned from an old local newspaper clipping that the building had once been the site of a tragedy many years ago. A former employee, tormented by personal loss, had vanished without a trace during a stormy night much like the one I'd experienced. Rumors said that his restless spirit roamed the restaurant, seeking solace and revenge, haunting anyone who dared disturb him. Some claimed that his soul was so tormented that even decades later, he returned every now and then, desperate for something no living person could provide. Now, whenever someone asks me about that night, I tell them the cold, hard truth. If you ever find yourself working a late shift at a McDonald's on a stormy night, and you notice strange handprints on freezer doors or hear unexplainable whispers from empty corridors, run. Don't look back. There are some things that hunger for more than just food. They hunger for attention, for validation, for the taste of fear. And once you cross the threshold into that dark, forgotten corner of the world, you may never truly escape. As I sit here and recount these events, I still feel that chill creeping up my spine. I try to convince myself it was just a series of coincidences and trickery of the mind, but deep inside I know the truth. That night, something ancient and hungry was awakened in that place, and it still waits in the silence, waiting for its next meal. And so, my friend, if you ever find yourself near an old McDonald's late at night, be wary of the shadows. They hold secrets that are best left undisturbed, and a hunger that is never truly sated. This is the story of something that happened to me just a year ago, and I swear, every single word I'm about to tell you is true. I'm going to tell you the true scary McDonald's horror story that still messes with my head to this day. If you've ever worked a night shift, especially at a fast food place, you'll understand what it feels like to be completely alone. But this was different. This was terrifying. So, I used to work night shifts at a McDonald's just outside a small town in Indiana. It was one of those locations right off the highway, kind of hidden behind trees with a gas station next door and not much else around. Most nights were quiet. A couple truckers, maybe someone stopping in for a late coffee, but otherwise, dead, silent. That night, though, it started like any other. Quiet, empty. Just me and one coworker named Josh. Josh and I would always goof off once we locked the lobby doors and switched to drive-through only. We cleaned, restocked, and got paid to watch the clock tick. But around 1:30 a.m., something strange happened. A car pulled into the drive-through. It wasn't weird by itself. We still got a few late-night customers, but this car didn't order anything. It just sat there in the lane. The monitor didn't beep, and nobody spoke. Josh tapped the mic. "Welcome to McDonald's. Can I take your order?" Silence. He tried again. "Hello? You there?" Still nothing. I looked at the camera feed. The car was there all right. A black sedan. Headlights off, windows dark. Too dark to see inside. It didn't move. Didn't even idle. It just sat there, like it had rolled into the lane and died. We waited a few more minutes, and then Josh shrugged. Probably some drunk. Fell asleep at the wheel. I thought so too. He grabbed his jacket to go out and check, but when he opened the back door and stepped outside, I watched him through the security monitors. He walked toward the car, nervously, but not scared. He tapped the window, said something I couldn't hear, and looked inside. Then he froze. He didn't move for what felt like 10 whole seconds. Then suddenly, he turned and ran back into the store. He slammed the door shut and locked it behind him. "What happened?" I asked, my voice already shaky. "There's no one in the car," he said, breathing heavy. "No driver, no passenger, nothing." I checked the screen again. The car was still there. "You're messing with me," I said. "It's probably tinted windows or—" "No," he snapped. I looked inside. The seats are empty. Right then, the drive-through headset beeped. My blood ran cold. Someone had just triggered the microphone. Josh looked at me, eyes wide. I reached out and hit the button. "Hello?" There was static for a few seconds, and then a voice. Quiet, raspy, almost like a whisper, came through the headset. "Do you believe in ghosts?" I stared at Josh. "That's not funny," I said, hoping somehow he'd pranked me, but the fear in his eyes said otherwise. The voice continued, barely audible. "Someone has to feed them." That was it. The feed cut out. and the screen showing. The car eye went black. Just like that, the camera went offline. I checked the other monitors. Every single outdoor camera was suddenly showing static. Then, the lights in the kitchen flickered. Once, then again, and then they went out. We were standing in complete darkness, only the emergency lights above the exits still on. The fryer shut off. The fridge stopped humming, and the silence that followed was unreal. Josh pulled out his phone, trying to turn on the flashlight, but his screen stayed black. My phone wouldn't turn on either. Both batteries were full, but nothing worked. Then we heard the sound. Footsteps. Inside the store. Not from the kitchen, not from the drive-thru. From the lobby. The part that had been locked since midnight. Whispered, "Josh, did you lock the front door?" He nodded. "Yeah, you saw me do it." So how the hell was someone walking around out there? We crept toward the service counter, hiding low. The only light came from that glowing red exit sign above the door. I could barely make out shapes, but I swear, I saw something move past the counter, not a person. Something taller, slower. It didn't walk, it kind of glided, almost like it floated. Josh grabbed my arm and mouthed the words, "We need to hide." We slipped into the storage room behind the kitchen, closing the door softly and stacking boxes in front of it. We didn't say a word, just crouched in the dark trying not to breathe too loud, and that's when the music started. That old McDonald's jingle, the one they haven't used in years. It started playing from the lobby, faint, broken, like it was playing from a busted speaker underwater. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. Then silence. We stayed in that room for what must have been 30 minutes. Every few minutes we heard footsteps, sometimes close, sometimes far. But we never heard a door open, never heard anyone leave. And there was this awful smell, like rotting meat mixed with something sweet. It made me gag. Finally, when the lights flickered back on and the equipment buzzed to life, we waited another 10 minutes before moving. We slowly pushed the boxes away and peeked out. The restaurant looked normal. Cameras were working again. Lobby was empty. The drive-through lane was clear. We unlocked the front door and ran to Josh's car, locking ourselves inside. We didn't say a word. He drove me home, and that was the last time either of us ever worked a night shift. The next morning, I tried to explain it to my manager. She looked at me like I was crazy. Checked the cameras. Nothing showed up. All recordings from 1 a.m. to 3 a.m. were corrupted. She thought we were playing some weird prank and gave us both a week off. But something strange happened a few days later. I got a message on my phone. No number, just a blank screen and an audio file. I played it. It was that same voice from the drive-thru. Someone has to feed them. Then it laughed. A slow, broken laugh, like a machine pretending to be human. I changed my number. I moved 2 towns over. Haven't spoken to Josh in months. He quit fast food entirely and won't return my texts. But sometimes late at night I drive by that McDonald's. The lights are always on, always bright. But the parking lot's empty. No customers, no employees visible through the windows. And once, just once, I saw the black car again, sitting in the drive-thru, headlights off, like it was waiting. So if you ever find yourself working a night shift at a McDonald's, especially one out by the highway, remember this story. If a car pulls up and doesn't say anything, don't go outside. If the cameras go black, don't trust what you see. And if a voice on the headset whispers, "To you," just walk away, because I don't know who or what that thing is, but I know it's still hungry. This is the story of something that happened to my cousin Mark, and I promise you, it still haunts him to this day. I'm going to tell you the true scary McDonald's horror story that he told me one night, and the way he looked when he told it. I knew he wasn't lying. Mark had just turned 21 and had recently taken a night shift job at a McDonald's in northern Michigan. The store was near the edge of town, next to a forest, a small, quiet place. It wasn't even open 24 hours. They closed the lobby at 11 p.m. and cleaned up before locking the doors at midnight. Simple, easy. That's why Mark took the job. It was a Tuesday night, around mid-October, when everything went wrong. That night, there were only two people working. Mark and a girl named Lisa. She worked the grill, he did the cleaning and front counter. At 11:05 p.m., the last customer left. A man in a red hoodie. He bought a cheeseburger and left without saying much. Mark locked the front door behind him, like always. Then, he started wiping down the counters while Lisa scrubbed the fryer trays in the back. A few minutes later, Mark noticed something weird. The man in the red hoodie was still outside, just standing there, not moving, not walking to a car, just standing in the middle of the parking lot, facing the building. At first, Mark thought maybe the guy was waiting for someone to pick him up, but after 5 minutes, the man hadn't moved an inch. Mark looked again and realized something even creepier. The man wasn't just facing the building, he was staring directly into the window, right at Mark. He stepped back from the counter and tried to act like he wasn't bothered, but he kept glancing up. The man didn't blink, didn't shift, didn't look away. Just stood there, dead still like a statue. Finally, Lisa walked up to the front and saw him too. Maybe he dropped his keys, she said quietly. I don't. I know, Mark replied, watching him. But something's off. Mark knocked lightly on the glass and waved, hoping to get his attention. Nothing. Not even a twitch. So Lisa called the manager, asking what to do. The manager told them to ignore the guy unless he tried to come back in. People act weird all the time, she said. Lock the doors. Don't engage. They hung up. When they looked back outside, the man was gone. Just like that. Not walking away. Not getting into a car. Gone. The lot was empty. Mark and Lisa stared for a while, confused, but eventually shrugged it off and got back to closing. Lisa returned to the kitchen. Mark went to restock the soda machines in the back room. That's when it happened. Lisa screamed. Not a little yelp, not a spider on the floor scream, but a full-on blood-curdling scream that made Mark's heart stop. He dropped the box he was carrying and sprinted into the kitchen. Lisa was backed into a corner, shaking and crying. What happened? He shouted. I saw him, she gasped. He was inside, behind the fryers. Mark looked around, confused. That's not possible, the doors are locked. Lisa pointed at the back of the kitchen. There was a delivery door that led to the rear alley. It was slightly open. Mark swore under his breath and ran to shut it. He looked outside. Nobody. The alley was empty. But the strange part? There were muddy footprints on the floor, fresh ones, and they led from the door, straight to the fryer, just like Lisa said. Now they were scared. This wasn't some drunk customer anymore. Someone had gotten inside. Someone who didn't make a sound. Someone who left no trace but those muddy prints. They called the police, explained what happened. An officer said he'd stop by to check it out. While they waited, they stayed together at the front counter watching the lobby. But it wasn't over yet. At exactly 11:47 p.m., the power flickered. Then all the lights went out. Everything. The fryers, the soda machine, the signs outside. Total blackout. Only the emergency lights near the exits came on, casting long, creepy shadows on the walls. Then, the bell above the front door rang. Ding! Mark jumped. Lisa grabbed his arm. "That door's locked," she whispered. "I know," Mark replied. "It's supposed to be." They crept forward slowly, trying to see the lobby. It was empty, but then Mark saw something move. A shape, a shadow, low to the ground, crawling. He blinked, thought maybe his eyes were playing tricks, but Lisa gasped. She saw it too. Something was crawling behind the counter. It didn't make any sound, just moved slowly, like it was stalking them. Mark grabbed the nearest thing he could find, a metal tray, and stepped toward the edge of the counter. He leaned over just enough to peek. Nothing there. He looked at Lisa. "It's gone." Then, the sound of heavy breathing came from behind them, from the play area. That's when they remembered something terrible. This McDonald's had an old, dusty kids' play zone on the side of the building. It hadn't been used in months, and most nights they left the lights off in there. Now, in the darkness, something was breathing. Slow, heavy, wet. Mark and Lisa didn't speak. They just backed away, step by step, toward the staff bathroom. They locked themselves inside. They could hear movement in the hall. Not footsteps. Dragging. Something sliding across the tiles. They stayed in that bathroom until the police finally arrived 15 minutes later. When they came out, the lights were back on. The power was fine. The cops checked everything, nobody there. No sign of forced entry. But here's the part that still makes my skin crawl. The security camera system, wiped. The footage from 10 p.m. to midnight, completely gone. The police said it was probably a glitch from the power outage. But Lisa quit that night. Mark stayed one more week, and then quit too. He couldn't take it. Every time he cleaned that fryer, every time he heard a door creak or saw a shadow, he thought it was back. That crawling thing. A few months later, the McDonald's closed permanently. No warning. Just a sign on the door. Closed until further notice. And guess what? The night before it shut down, a different employee saw something too. A man in a red hoodie, standing in the parking lot, not moving, just staring. So if you ever find yourself working late at a McDonald's and you see someone standing still outside for too long, lock the doors, turn on every light you can, and whatever you do, never go near the play area after midnight.